This is the Ecovacs Deebot X11 OmniCyclone, a flagship smart vacuum that has a lot of new specs that Ecovacs says will put it in a league of its own. But where does this brand new X11 OmniCyclone actually stand up to its predecessor, the X9 Pro Omni? In today's video, I'm going to compare the two so you know which one is a better buying decision. So without further ado, let's jump in the video. First things first, I want to thank Ecovacs for sending both of these out to me for full honest review, but this is not sponsored in any other way. And if you guys are brand new here and love tech and smart home technology as much as I do, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hit that like button. I truly appreciate it. Now, spoiler alert, the X11, which by the way, the Deebot X11 OmniCyclone, I'm just going to call from here on out just the X11 versus the X9. Obviously, they have their full name, but the X11 has a lot of specs that upgrade it from the X9, but in all reality, in everyday cleaning, a lot of these new specs are not going to give you a better cleaning performance. Obviously, there's very specific use cases, and some people might want one or two little things that they see in the X11. Thus, it would be worth buying and paying more for. But for the masses, I think the X9 is a better buying decision. And all the new specs that they list out and renamed are good and dandy. But at the end of the day, it really depends on how it performs and the needs that you have. And I think in most cases, most people will be just as happy with the X9 as with the X11. So with that being said, I think the X11 has some specs that we need to talk about now to let you know, to see if any of these might be right for you. And one of the first things I want to talk about, and most notably, is their power boost charging. Now, this is only in the X11, and pretty much what it is GaN charging, which is like a fast charger. Now, most people's homes, you don't mind if the robot goes back when the battery gets low and recharges and then goes back out and clean. But for some reason, if you have an extremely large house or some special use case, having a fast charger might be beneficial. But I think in most people's homes, it doesn't really matter if it goes back and has to charge up for a little while and then goes back out. But with this power boost charging technology, with the GaN charging, supposedly when the robot goes back and washes its mopping roller, that time spent washing the mop roller will actually increase the battery life a lot more in the X11 than it will in the X9. Thus, it doesn't have to come back and charge up as often as the X9. Now, understand both these still come back and get its roller mopped wash depending on what setting you have within the app, but the time spent mop washing is the same, but the amount of charge that charges up the robot is different. So if that's a necessity to you, then the X11 is something you might want to consider. Next, let's talk about the TruePass Adaptive 4WD climbing system. WD, I don't know what that stands for. I would think that would be four-wheeled drive, but this doesn't have four wheels, so it only has three wheels. So I don't know where the 4WD, maybe the levers, maybe they're talking about that as a wheel. I just don't know where that 4WD really stands for. But I digress. It does have a climbing system that they say can go up thresholds up to 4 centimeters. Now, this is a 2-level threshold. The first threshold has to be under 2.4 centimeters. Then the remaining can be conquered by the 2 new little blue levers that are right next to the 2 main drive wheels. Now, understand the design of using a lever instead of a lifting chassis or possibly even secondary wheels is that it cannot travel very far at that additional height. It can only lift up in a very narrow space. Thus, it has to be a second transition because when those levers go down, the wheels have to push that lever over in a very narrow area. In addition, 4 centimeters is pretty low when it comes to robotic vacuums that can lift up over transitions, and most robots, including the X8 and X9, can handle some degree of transition. For instance, I tested both the X8 and the X9 in a single transition at 1.9 centimeters and had no problems getting over that single transition. And I even tested a double transition, and both the X8 and X9 got over it, even though it did struggle just a little bit. In addition, their threshold marking within the app can also mark a ramp. So if you have a sunken living room like I do, you can build a ramp. Usually I think it's about 12 degrees of pitch is probably the maximum. And I was able to get the Ecovacs X11 to work with it. So if you do want to build a ramp, you can definitely mark it within the map and it will find it and go up and down as you build it correctly. And I highly suggest that you mark the step as a no-go zone except for the area where it has the ramp. That way it doesn't even attempt to go there and it goes straight to the ramp. And I did do a video on how I built this ramp, even though it was for another vacuum. The concept is exactly the same. If you guys want to see that video, there'll be a card in the top right corner or down in the description below. Next, let's talk about the most notable difference that most people are going to visually see between the X9 and the X11, and that is the Omni station or the base station. Obviously, physically, they are totally different, and you can see right in the front of the X11, you have the OmniCyclone. So instead of disposable bags, it has a nice big canister on the front, and you can see as it's sucking in the debris, it goes around in a circle like a cyclone. And what I love about it is that there's nothing that you need to buy. So now for the life of the vacuum, all the dust and large debris is going to get sucked into this canister. And you can simply take out the canister out of the Omni station, walk over to your trash can, press a button, and the bottom of the canister will open and all the debris will fall into your trash. And then you can put the whole canister right back into the base station, and there's no bags to change or to buy. In addition to other things about the base station, now they switched the clean water and dirty water tanks up at the top. So now the clean water is on the left and the dirty water is on the right. Not a big deal, but did want to point it out to you guys. In addition, the base station has dual soap dispensers. That's right, 2 different soap dispensers, one for everyday cleaning and one for heavy duty. And inside the app, you can say which rooms you would like to use the heavy duty solution. So say maybe you have pets in one room, you might want to use something a little bit stronger, or whatever Ecovacs recommends. You definitely want to use their solutions to keep all the warranties and everything. But the X9 only has one standard solution. Otherwise, the base stations pretty much do the exact same thing. When the robot comes back, it's going to wash the mop roller with hot water. It's going to put all the dirty water in the dirty water tank, suck out all the dust and dirt, and put in either the bag or the cyclone canister, depending on which model that you have. But everything else is exactly the same. And there's a lot of different settings that you can play with within the app to customize how long it air dries the mop so it doesn't grow mold or bacteria, but they both do that. So pretty much everything else is exactly the same in the base station. And now for some new names of pretty much same features. With the Osmos roller, you now have the 2.0. They just say it's a new high density nylon mop roller. You can slightly see a difference here side by side, but when you do cleaning, it's exactly the same. I didn't see any difference whatsoever. They both dry very well, and I just don't see any difference between the two rollers. And then when it comes to the True Edge, they take it from a 2.0 to a 3.0 with a air cushion. Roller extends up to 15 millimeters. Well, they both do it, and from what I measured, they both come out exactly the same. Now, the X11 does have these little rollers on the side, so as it's getting close and maybe even touching your edges, it's not going to cause any damage. It's just going to keep on rolling, where you could get some scuffing with the X9. I mean, you can still get scuffing with the X11 too, but with those low rollers on the side, it's going to be less likely. Nevertheless, the mopping roller does extend out and get all your edges up against your baseboard, but still does not do corners, and it does not have an extendable side brush, so your corners are going to still have to be manually cleaned. And they did up the suction power from 16,600 PA on the X9 to 19,500 PA on the X11. But as I've said many times in my reviews, after like 10,000 PA of suction power, you're not going to see a huge difference in cleaning ability in your everyday cleaning. If you're doing scientific tests, obviously you're going to see more suction power. But in everyday cleaning ability, you're not going to see a huge difference. So even though this number keeps going up and up, it's not going to do a better cleaning job in everyday cleaning. And when it comes to obstacle avoidance, they both do pretty well. They both have the AI VI 3D 3.0, and they both pretty much did the exact same thing in my testing. Neither one did perfect, but both of them did fairly well. But there's definitely room for some improvement in smaller, closer to the ground types of things like pens and pencils. And the X11 has a smarter than ever AI agent or agent hosting. Many Ecovacs have had some type of AI in there to detect more dirt in real time. It's just getting better and better. But in real life, you're not going to see a huge difference in the AI between the X9 and the X11 unless you're looking for very specific things. But in everyday cleaning, you're not going to see a better cleaning result from the X11 than you did from the X9. Although they do mention the new AI will learn your habits and your routines, and maybe you skip certain rooms on weekends, but then again, you can just schedule these things ahead of time with the X9, and you really don't need this AI, more advanced AI. But if it's something that you could really use, then the X11 definitely has it. But to me, I don't think that's a huge selling factor. And they both work with your favorite voice assistant and smart home platform. It does work with Matter, so if you're an Apple Home user like I am, Ecovacs is one of the best that works with Apple Home right now because all the rooms you can integrate within Apple Home rather than just telling it to go out and clean. You can tell it to go to a specific room. They're one of the only ones that have that feature currently, even though I'm sure other brands will have that in the near future. But that's both on the X9 and the X11. Both of these are terrific smart home vacuums. They're both flagships. I think it really comes down mainly to price, and whichever one is cheaper is the one that I would recommend, unless you absolutely need that power boost charging with that GAN advanced charging. I think it's a cool feature, but I think in everyday use, most people don't need that type of super fast charging because it can just go back at normal speed and recharging and then go back out and clean. But if that's something that you absolutely have to have because you have a super big house or some other special use case, then the X11 definitely has it. Or if you want a physical canister instead of the replaceable bags, I think that's the huge selling factor for me. But then again, that's not worth, $200-$300 more, or whatever the huge difference is between the X9 and X11. It's cool that you can see when it's filled up and you know when to empty it rather than having it hidden inside and not quite sure when it's completely full. So having that is nice, and to me that's the big selling factor, but what is it worth? Nevertheless, they both do a terrific job of cleaning. X11 does have a couple extra features that you might like, but I think for most people you just want something that does a great job, and the X9 at a more affordable price is the better choice. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, make sure you check out the affiliate links down below. Definitely helps out the channel. And if you guys are brand new here and love smart home tech, technology, gadgets, all that fun stuff, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And while you're at it, hit that like button. Truly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys on the next video.